time for the cockpit to get a serious renovation. Watch as it transforms from this to this in just 1 week.
Hello, welcome back. My name is Aladino, and together with my wife Maya, we are refitting a Cape George Cutter 36. Last week we made some exciting progress in the cockpit.
Wow!
Wow, what?
I haven't seen this yet.
Well, it just was born. And we got started on varnishing the interior. Wow, look at that!
Right?
Did you make mirrors? This week we're gonna continue focus on the cockpit. I really have to get some framing in here to accommodate the first sheet of plywood that we've already prepared. It is really important to close up the cockpit because very soon here the boat is gonna move and it's no longer gonna be in a shed. So building the cockpit is part of waterproofing. So yep, we gotta get at that. The boat is moving because my visa is about to run out, and not to say bye to the project and not see it for another 6 months. We prefer moving it because it is also pretty close to a stage where it doesn't need a workshop anymore. So then we can continue in Canada. Now this side is all ready to go. I also checked if everything was level with a batten. They are sanded and prepared, so you can see that I've taped the area, so this is actually ready to get closed up. I'm not quite sure yet if I want to start with one piece only or if I actually want to get the whole thing ready, but there's still quite a bit of framing and I like to for now still leave it open to check, to run a batten along to see that the curvature and that everything is uniform. So mostly I will be focusing on this section here. We have a section, I need to hammer to get in there, but this one is done. I also have the third piece of beam. I just made this one goes in place here. So that's pretty much only the assembly is required and a little bit of fine tuning it. Here we will have two hatches. This beam we've made a while back. But basically what's missing here is longitudinal supports. One of them will go here, and then pretty much the same on this side. And these ones I do in a simplified manner. They're different dimensions, they're not the same depth as all the other beams, but I really think that this is good enough, having two beefy beams here that weren't in this place before. And then also at the end of the hatch, because it's a square hatch, there's gonna be a piece of framing running from beam to beam there. I decided to rebuild the cockpit out of a couple of reasons. The cockpit had previously been rebuilt and it had some signs of rot again, so I wanted to really mitigate that. Also, I thought I can make some changes. The biggest change was just moving the aft bulkhead a little further forward, which gives us much bigger storage lockers, which were not in ideal use before. Even though I don't quite have the same admiration for my own craft as I do for other things that I see, it is quite satisfying to see this boat take shape, all done by us two. That was a long day, but wow, it was worth it. Worth it that days are long. Oh, what am I saying? I'm tired. Yeah, now I will just lay back, look at it, enjoy it, and have a beer. That was some good rest, good night's sleep, but now we're back at it. So I took all the beams off, the new ones that I made. I rounded over the inner bottom corners. That is just when I'm rummaging inside the locker. I don't want any sharp edges. I am leaving them off though just for the moment, because next I'm gonna mix up some total boat fairing compound, and I'm just gonna lightly fair the surfaces, especially all the plywood parts, the bulkheads, and this partition here, because we have glassed every surface, but the glassing leaves little pinholes, so just a quick fairing. Yes, granted it's in a cockpit locker, but I have so many little missions to do in the meantime while this cures that I think it will benefit from it, not to have to scrape mold out of pinholes if that ever happens. A smoother surface is always nice. Progress is happening a lot quicker now. Construction is definitely way more exciting than this destruction.
Meanwhile, my varnishing work is well underway and it's continuing, but for the next several days, I'm actually driving up to Canada to see my little brother's graduation. He's graduating from university, so I'm really excited that I get to go be there with my family. So the rest of this episode is going to be pretty much just Aladino.
So it is the next day, and I have spent a good portion of the day sanding the fairing compound that I applied yesterday. Oh, what a job. I'm pretty empty now. It's something that really drains your batteries and also mentally. It's nice to break sanding tasks up, but sometimes they just accumulate, and that's definitely been on Maya's plate a lot. There's just been a stage of so much sanding, but she trucks along, and it's turning out absolutely beautiful. There ain't no stopping us. So now that it's all sanded, I'm going to apply primer, and that means that after priming I have to do it again, which is not something I'm looking forward to. But instead of just sitting on it, I finished the sanding and now I'm gonna apply primer, and then maybe I'll do something else for a day before I come back and sand the primer. And it sure is gonna be very satisfying once it's all uniformly primed. And the primer is much easier to sand. The fairing is easy to sand too. It's just the corners the sander cannot get everywhere. It's not just flat surfaces with the beams and behind the beams, all of that. But yeah, the primer will be even easier because it can just be scuffed up with Scotch-Brite and a quick pass with the orbital sander over flat surfaces. So let's do this. While I worked on the cockpit, I also had some other odd jobs to knock off my list. Just like with every hardware that penetrates through the plywood, I like to fiberglass the perimeter. So I dug out the gear shifter that we got, and actually the thickness of the plywood is too much. So I had to grab the router first, take away some material so that I could recess the gear shift front panel. It does fit, but also to allow for attaching the hardware on the back, you have to drill quite a big hole, and it leaves you with quite an ugly big hole in the quarter berth side. Yeah, I came up with something that I'm pretty pleased with. It is fiberglass again. I wetted out 4 layers of woven thin cloth, some leftovers from building the dinghy, and then I put peel ply on it. I taped the whole gear shifter front panel, and I through bolted it through that hole, so now it is actually all glassed in place. Well, not only do I like the looks of this one being flush and recessed, but what I also like is that from inside the quarter berth, it gives me a nice flange that I can fill with fairing and paint over it, which eliminates the ugly big hole. These drawers have really been a collaboration. The teak has been donated by Brock, the drawers have been made by Ken, Maya has put the finishing on, and I have now installed the drawer pulls on them. Isn't this a nice image somehow of the 2 parts that will soon be permanently bonded together in this mirror vision? It's time to close the quarter berth! Yay, finally! It's going to be somewhat challenging. It is a straightforward job. It's a big one, so of course there's always some nervous energy before actually checking it off the box and having it done. But it's fairly simple and straightforward. The challenging part consists in Maya not being here this week. It will be a real challenge to film it, also not gonna have her precious help. Yeah, I'm gonna start just wetting out all the beams so that some epoxy gets soaked up by the wood. Oh, maybe I'm gonna put a tarp down over our nicely painted quarter berth. Yeah, let's do that. And then I'm gonna mix a batch with colloidal silica to thicken it up, make it like peanut butter consistency or even more, so that I won't have too much drooping down. Because the real mission is maintaining the zen once I'm in the quarter berth and cleaning up every seam. They're hard to get to already. I added some tape on both sides, but yeah, that's the real challenging part. You can't be everywhere at the same time. It's kind of running on you, but that's why I'll make it rather thick. Alright, so far so good. So now I'll start fastening, but yeah, it's a job of going below every now and then, check and clean, and then come up again, apply a little more screw pressure. But yeah, we're almost there.
Put your hand in my hand, darling, say go. Keep your eyes on the horizon, stay gold. All I need are your eyes, you're my arrow. Now we're running into the wild. I see the light. I feel alive.
So now that the imminent danger of epoxy waterfalls is over, I'm gonna attempt to crawl around in the quarter berth and bring the camera with me. Yeah, always slightly nervous, but that's why you add thickener, but it is a tricky balance. On one side you want to leave it as liquid as you can because you're working with wood and wood absorbs epoxy, you get a better grip. It's always an in-between, try to leave it as moist as you can, but also not have it flow out. I've decided I'm also going to prime the plywood right now, so that's going to take care of a couple of things. First, fill the screw holes, and of course priming the plywood, so it will be thoroughly cured when I sand it in a couple of days. I'm just looking forward to closing the port side up as well. So now that we have the framing of the locker, it's blocking season again. Luckily this time I don't need that many, and I still found some leftover sapili that were cut at the right angle because the beam shelf meets the hull at a specific angle from stern to bow. It's always different. So the only thing that I had to do was to actually do the miter cuts, and those are done. So because also when the blocks are in place, I can put the deck on again that I already made, and then I can trace where my new beams are, where the blocks are, and so I'll get ready to paint the underside before it's gonna go in place. So I've sanded the beam shelf from underneath, and so I don't have to tear up sandpaper once the carriage bolts are in. So next the carriage bolts are going in. 2, 4, 6. Huge respect to people who do orchestrate this all on their own. It sure isn't easy to work and document and edit and upload. Yeah, all of that. Not that I'm editing this. Nice! I can set up the tripod now on the starboard over the quarter berth because we have a deck again. That's exciting, a new perspective. So I managed to sand the locker underneath me, but I have limited minutes on the SD card, and not to fill it up too much, I spared you that glorious footage. I would like to close up this deck, obviously, but no, it's more about what is the order of operation. The order of operation is, first of all, close up those two sections, the bridge deck, so that I can yet put the second layer over this area, because I really want to fiberglass over the cabin top. And of course then it's the whole continuation of the more deck I have, then I can place the next bulwark, which is about 8 feet long. It comes to about here, and then I will slowly work towards the back. So closing the very aft section here, the poop deck, is not the highest priority. Of course it also is, but not in the order of operations. I've gotten pretty used to fitting into tight spaces. I think that's the first reason why a company gets an apprentice in Switzerland. I'm excited for Maya to come home and see the cockpit painted. I think that will make her happy. Things are looking pretty good here. This is after the first coat. Then towards afternoon, I'll paint again and then I'll get out of here. Now I'm gonna get started sanding the two aft lockers, well, also the central part, which is quite difficult as there is quite a bit of surface to it and a little bit out of reach, but I'll manage. One day no more sanding and a little bit of cycling again, a better balance. Alright, so I'm leaving some fun for tomorrow, the middle section. Next I'm gonna put in the framing permanently. So, I'm getting ready for the second coat. I got a bit carried away with other missions. Time really is flying. Pretty much another week has gone by, but I'm stoked about the progress. One thing that I'm very excited about, and I think this could be the right place to announce it, is gutters and hatches. Now you can see that I've made pretty specific openings with my framing, and that is because I'm not gonna build my own gutters and hatches. I am getting those made by Jim over at Wells Fiberglass. That's the website. They are specialized in making hatches. They will be done a lot quicker, a lot more precisely, because they use CNC machines to actually make the molds. For the price, yeah, it's like a no-brainer. I can do hatches, I can do gutters. It would take me quite a long time, but yeah, this is something I'm really excited about. So there is a 22 by 22 hatch, which will fit one on either side here. And then the trickier one is actually this hatch here, because they don't have one that is exactly the shape and the size of this compartment, but they are actually gonna modify one for me. So I'm really curious how that will turn out. It's always hard to communicate things like this exactly, so I am willing to still do some further modification to actually fit it in place. I'm curious how it will actually turn out, but yeah, super excited about that. And that's about it for this episode. Yeah, good to have you all here. You can tell I'm a little more tired, but it was a really good week. I'm very happy. Maya will be back in the next episode, and in the meanwhile, thank you for watching.